The first time I saw the transfers, I thought it was a mistake. Same amount, same date, every month. Going to my brother. I didn't say anything at first, because I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining it, because if I was right, it would change everything. And the worst part? My mom still believed she was being fair. She still said, "I treat both of you the same." And for years, I believed her too. Until I realized something painful. She wasn't wrong. She was being lied to. My name is Rachel Bennett. And I didn't just lose trust in my brother. I watched my mom lose everything because of him. Before I show you what I found behind those transfers, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because this story isn't about favoritism. It's about manipulation that hides inside trust. After my dad passed away, life didn't fall apart. Not in the way people expect. There were no loud breakdowns, no dramatic changes, just quiet adjustments. We continued living, handling things, moving forward. Like that's what we were supposed to do. But sometimes, the biggest changes don't happen loudly. They happen underneath everything, and you don't notice them until much later. Without saying it out loud, roles were already set. I handled myself, my work, my responsibilities, my expenses, everything I needed. I managed on my own. Not because I had to prove anything, but because that's how I was used to living. Stable, independent, predictable. My brother's situation was always explained the same way. He's struggling. He's trying. Things aren't easy for him. And my mom believed that, fully, without questioning it, because she saw him differently, not as someone making choices, but as someone who needed help. Every time the topic came up, she would repeat the same sentence. "I treat both of you equally." And I never challenged that, because in her mind, she was being fair. She thought, helping him more meant balancing things out, and for a long time, I accepted that logic. Months turned into years, and nothing changed. At least, not visibly. He was still struggling, still needing support, still depending on her, and she kept helping him, without limits, without hesitation, without realizing something wasn't right. At first, it wasn't obvious, just small things, little details, moments that didn't fully make sense, but not enough to question everything. Because when something feels slightly off, you ignore it. You tell yourself, it's nothing. Then one day, I went to see him. Nothing planned, just a visit. Casual, normal. And when I walked in, he said the same thing he always said. Things are really tight right now. But this time, I actually looked around, and what I saw didn't match his words. A new phone. Not basic. Expensive. A watch. That didn't belong to someone struggling. And the way he carried himself. Relaxed. No stress. No pressure. That's when something shifted. Not loudly. Quietly. Because when reality doesn't match what you're told, you start noticing everything. And for the first time, I didn't just believe him. I questioned it. But I didn't confront him. Didn't ask questions. Didn't involve my mom. Because I didn't have proof. Just a feeling. And feelings aren't enough. So instead, I decided to look. Carefully. Quietly. Because if something was wrong, I needed to see it clearly. If you think he was just hiding small things, you're wrong. Because what I found next wasn't small at all. After that visit, I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because this time, I didn't want answers. I wanted proof. And proof takes patience and feelings can be wrong. So instead of reacting, I started checking, quietly. No one knew. Not my mom, not my brother. Because if something wasn't right, I needed proof, not assumptions. At first, it didn't look serious. Just small things, easy to ignore. But the more I paid attention, the more consistent it became. Because patterns don't appear randomly, they repeat. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Then I checked something simple. His social media. Not directly, not obviously, just casually. And that's when I saw it. Photos, trips, places he never mentioned, moments that didn't fit his struggle. And the more I looked, the clearer it became. There were two versions of him. The one my mom knew, struggling, needing help, barely managing, and the one I was seeing, comfortable, active, stable, and those two versions didn't match at all. For a moment, I thought about telling her, but I stopped. Because I knew, without proof, I would sound like the problem, and I wasn't going to risk that. I didn't stop there, because now I knew something was wrong. So I went deeper, more careful, more focused, looking for something real, something undeniable, because if I was going to say anything, it had to be clear. And then I found it. A record. Simple, official, a small apartment, registered in his name. I stared at it for a long time, because that wasn't small. That wasn't temporary. That was stability. That's when everything connected. He wasn't struggling. He was building his life, quietly, comfortably, using the support my mom believed he needed. And that difference changed everything. Because this wasn't misunderstanding. This was deception. He didn't just hide things. He controlled the narrative. He made sure my mom saw one version of him and lived another. And for years, it worked. Because she trusted him. Completely. At that point, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Not because I wanted to expose him, but because I understood the risk. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust. And if I didn't say anything, it would continue. If you think my mom believed me, you're wrong. Because what happened next proved how deep his manipulation really was. I didn't wait too long after that. Not because I wanted to expose him, but because I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I told my mom, calmly, carefully. I showed her what I found. The apartment, the lifestyle, the inconsistencies. And for a moment, she just looked at me, not angry, not shocked, confused. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. That doesn't mean he's not struggling. She didn't deny the facts. She reinterpreted them. Because when someone trusts deeply, they don't reject the person. They adjust the truth. And that's exactly what she did. It wasn't that she didn't understand. It was that she didn't want to. Because accepting it would mean something bigger. That she had been wrong for years. That she had trusted the wrong person. And that kind of realization doesn't come easily. That's when I realized something else. This wasn't new for him. He had already prepared for this moment. Because every time he spoke to her, he built a story, a version of himself that she believed in completely. And once that version is strong enough, nothing breaks it easily. So I looked deeper, not just at his life, but at his communication. And then I found them. Messages, not recent, but consistent. You're the only one who understands me. She doesn't care like I do. I stopped reading for a moment, because now everything made sense. He wasn't just asking for help. He was positioning himself, making my mom feel needed, making her feel chosen, while slowly separating me from her. Not directly, not obviously, but emotionally. And when I thought about it, I realized something painful. There had been a distance growing. Small at first, barely noticeable, but real. Because every time he spoke, he shaped how she saw me, and I never noticed it happening. This time, she didn't argue, didn't defend him. She just stopped responding. And that silence was an agreement. It was resistance, because deep down, she knew something wasn't right, but she still wasn't ready to accept it. Because in that moment, I understood something clearly. He wasn't just lying, he was controlling perception, and as long as my mom believed him, the truth didn't matter. Because belief is stronger than evidence. So I stopped. Not because I gave up, but because I understood. This wasn't something I could force her to see. She had to experience it herself. And until that happened, nothing I said would change anything. After that, I stopped trying to convince her, stopped bringing it up, stopped pushing the truth. Because I understood something clearly. She wasn't ready to see it. So life kept moving. Normal on the surface. Conversations stayed the same. His story stayed the same. And she kept supporting him, without questioning anything. But underneath all of that, something was building. Not long after, he got married. Quickly, without much discussion, without involving us properly. And from the beginning, something felt off. Not obvious, not loud, just uncomfortable. Because the dynamic changed instantly, and not in a good way. After the marriage, things became clearer. His wife didn't try to connect, didn't try to build relationships. She stayed distant, cold, and slowly. His behavior changed too. Less available, less responsive, more controlled. Like decisions weren't just his anymore. Even with all those changes, one thing stayed the same. The money. My mom kept sending it, regularly, without hesitation, because in her mind, he still needed it, and he never corrected that belief. Not once. But something else changed. They stopped showing up, stopped visiting, stopped checking on her. Calls became shorter, messages became fewer, and slowly, the relationship shifted from close to distant. Then one day, something small happened. Nothing serious, nothing urgent, just something simple she needed help with. So she called him, the same way she always did, expecting the same response. But this time, something was different. He didn't say no directly, he just delayed. Excuses, timing issues. I'll call you back. I'll come later. But later never came, and for the first time, she felt it. Not through words, through absence. That moment was small on the surface, but it mattered, because it didn't come from me. It came from him. And when truth comes directly, it's harder to ignore. I could see it in her face, the doubt, the hesitation, the beginning of realization. I didn't step in, didn't remind her of what I said before, didn't point anything out. Because this moment wasn't about proving myself right. It was about her seeing it herself. And sometimes, silence helps people see more clearly. That's when everything began to shift. Not dramatically, not instantly, slowly. Because once doubt enters, it grows. And for the first time, she wasn't just believing him. She was questioning him. If you think that was the moment everything ended, you're wrong. Because what I did next made sure she saw the full truth. After everything, I didn't rush into anything. I didn't confront him immediately, because by now, I understood something important. The truth wasn't enough. It needed to be seen, felt, experienced. So instead of arguing, I planned something simple, something direct, something that wouldn't rely on words, because words had already failed. A few days later, I asked my mom to come with me. Didn't explain much, didn't give details. Just said I needed to show her something. She hesitated at first, but she came. And when we arrived, she didn't recognize the place, because she wasn't supposed to. I knocked. Not rushed, not aggressive, just calm. And after a few seconds, the door opened. My brother stood there, surprised, not prepared, because this wasn't part of his plan. And behind him, everything became visible. That place wasn't temporary. It wasn't basic. It was complete, fully set, comfortable, lived in. The kind of space you build when you're stable, not struggling. And in that moment, nothing needed explaining, because everything she believed collapsed instantly. Then his wife said something casually, without thinking. "Don't worry, everything is stable now." That sentence ended everything, because it confirmed what words couldn't. No excuses, no explanations, just truth. And in that moment, my mom understood. He tried to speak, tried to explain. "I was going to tell you," but it didn't land, because once something is seen, explanations lose power. They sound empty, delayed, incomplete. And for the first time, no one believed him. A few days later, I checked her account, and what I saw didn't feel real. It wasn't just low, it was nearly gone. Savings, years of it, disappeared. Not slowly, in large amounts. Transfer after transfer, all legal, all in his name. And that's when it hit. This wasn't help anymore. This was loss. That's when it became clear. This wasn't just help. This was a pattern. One that kept repeating. One that slowly drained everything. He didn't just take support. He depended on it, built around it. And the hardest part? She trusted him enough to allow it, without ever questioning it. When we confronted him again, he didn't argue this time, didn't deny anything. He just said, "I've built my life. You should manage yours." No emotion, no guilt, just distance. And in that moment, we saw him clearly. Later, my mom came to me, quiet, not angry, not defensive, just broken. And she said, "I trusted him and ignored you." I didn't correct her, didn't remind her of anything I said before, didn't prove myself right. Because some realizations don't need words. I just stood there, listening, because for the first time, she could finally see it herself, not what I told her, what she experienced. And that's when I understood something too. He didn't take everything at once. He took it slowly, piece by piece. Trust first, then control, then everything else. And the hardest part? She let him. Not because she was weak, but because she believed him. And sometimes, belief is the easiest thing to manipulate. He didn't just take her money. He took the trust she gave him and used it until there was nothing left. If this story felt real, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because sometimes the biggest loss isn't money. It's realizing the person you trusted most was the one taking everything.